I could not get a judge fired. Back then, no one cared about Me Too. So I just think about what my dad taught me. Is like, if you run into a brick wall like that, you just keep moving. And so I take that with me to every case that I have, because even though I had to run the gauntlet in that case, I still won.
Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmuth.
All right, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. And we have done maybe a poor job at introducing, the reasons and why our guests are here. But, part of the more recent episodes, we're talking about where I've been, my life. And part of that I've, in the Army was meeting people from all over the country. Many of them were from Texas.
Well, today's guest is from Texas.
Yes.
Now, Texas is now a state, and I hope our guest today realizes that. It was a republic. It was its own country at one time. But I've been to Texas. Have you gone to Texas?
I have been for a conference, in Dallas.
Uh-huh. So I've been, numerous times, and it's always exciting, but I'll never forget my very first time there, which was on a Greyhound bus going from New Mexico to Louisiana. And I swear it must have been 500 hours to cross Texas. And Western Texas, I remember in particular, it didn't look that beautiful, to be honest. But and it just went on and on and on forever and ever. But let's introduce today's guest. We've teased her a bit already. Her name is Jean Power, and she actually does a very important job. And she is an attorney, works in my office actually, and heads the employment law department. So handles a lot of very important cases for a lot of very important clients. And so she is our guest today, and also her case file manager, her number one assistant, Ting, is with us as well, but off camera right now. But welcome, Jean.
Thank you so much for the kind welcome, and howdy to all of you.
Yes.
I am a Texan. I am from the Republic of Texas, then later one of the states of these United States of America. I'm happy to be here. I've been a licensed attorney in Texas for a very long time, and then I drove that drive from Texas to California. Half of the drive was in Texas. The other half was in the rest of the states that got me here. And I'm excited to be here with Ting, with an emphasis on my number one assistant.
Yes.
She is the number one. She is the best.
Hardworking Ting.
Yes.
The show is called the SGV Master Key, and part of the qualifications for the show or to be a guest is having some sort of connection with the San Gabriel Valley. So can you share with the listeners what that connection is?
Well, my connection is when Scott hired me to work here in his San Gabriel office. And I've really enjoyed the people I've met. I've also been involved in the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. So I help and meet the needs of a lot of the people that have issues with employment law that live and work here in the San Gabriel Valley.
Did you come straight from Texas to work here, or were you already here in the San Gabriel Valley?
I did not come immediately to the San Gabriel Valley. I moved here about 6 years ago. And I was still wrapping up some law work in Texas. And then I took the California bar exam because there's no reciprocity in this state. And it's tough from somebody who last took an exam in 1989 to take an exam now. But I did it. I made myself do it. And so...
Wow, what year did you do it? just within the last couple of years. 2019.
Yes.
Wow. That is pretty impressive because I believe I would fail if I took the bar exam. And I passed the first time. I've always been a good test taker, but I'll bet you I would fail if I took the exam today.
I think you would pass, but I would have failed if I didn't get some advice. I did take a review class back in 1989. It was part multiple choice, part essay, and we hand wrote our essays. Now, me and the young kiddos that took it, everything's on the computer, including the essay exam. So I took a bar review course, and I was pretty much in isolation for 6 months. My family can attest to this. Yeah. That wasn't very pleasant, but it was one of the greatest challenges of my life, and I'm not exaggerating. Scott would know that.
No, I know. But actually, a test like that is, you've got to be good at test taking and really reviewing and practicing test taking as opposed to the substantive issues. It's just as important.
Exactly.
You've got to be able to be a good test taker. So
you do, and I had to learn that skill again because, as you know, when you practice as a lawyer, everything you do as a lawyer does not show up on the bar exam. And I had to get out of my head, like, they had me evaluate a case. I'm like, no one's going to take a case for this low amount, but that's not the right answer. Right. I need to do a constitutional analysis.
Yeah.
So you have to, me moving to California required me to adapt. Me taking a bar exam required me to adapt. And so to answer your question, I did work at a couple other jobs before I got hired here. And I will say confidently, this is the best job I've ever had, not just in California, but ever had. I really enjoy working at Scott's office.
That's because he's sitting right there.
You can ask anyone. Ting hears me say it all the time. I'll talk to you. I go, listen, I am not lying. I say it all the time, don't I?
Yeah. Well, that's very nice. It's good to have at least one person on my side. 1 out of 70. That's great.
I
Thank
think
you.
there's others.
So before we go on, I know that maybe some of the listeners, and including myself, what does California does not have reciprocity mean?
What it means is there's some states that will accept your bar license. Like probably, for example, in Washington, D.C., they'd probably let me just be in the bar exam because I've already been a lawyer in good standing, hadn't gotten in trouble. Many states are that way, but the big states, New York, Florida, Texas, California, they do not have reciprocity. They want you to take their bar exam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll pretend that I'm asking for the listener.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
And the other important thing Jean does is, besides practicing law, is she brings in Porto's food every once in a while.
I am lucky to live dangerously near a Porto's. It's so easy to drive by. And they don't have Porto's in Texas, but I really appreciate it. I love it.
Yeah, I guess if you live in the San Gabriel Valley and don't know Porto's, you're missing out,
yeah.
Right?
That's right?
So tell us a little bit about your upbringing. So you were born and raised in Texas, right?
I was raised in Texas. My father's the native Texan, and I was born in Indiana because my dad was going to college there. My father was in the Army, and then when he got out of the Army, he got a job putting up radio antennas in Argentina, and there he met my mother. Just a girl he met at a dance. It's like a movie. And he married her there, brought her back to Texas, and actually caused a family scandal. My southern relatives were not appreciative of my father having an immigrant wife who spoke another language, who was of another religion. Back in those days, Argentina was a Catholic country, and you had to promise to raise your kids as such. And so, but he didn't care because, he grew up poor and wanted to move forward. So he eventually, when I was 3, we all moved back to Texas, where my dad was from, and I lived there from age 3 all the way until I moved here 6 years ago. So I went to public schools in Texas. My father was a NASA engineer, and I was raised to never quit, to never give up, and to always follow through on your word. And so that's the background I come from as a Texan.
Did you grow up in Houston?
I grew up in Houston, Texas. My father, so we lived near Johnson Space Center, which is NASA. So that's why my father was an electrical engineer there. And there are some interesting things about living there. I went to school with the children of astronauts, something like that. We knew them.
And Pasadena has a lot of that as well with JPL.
Absolutely.
A lot of interplanetary, we've had as our guest an interplanetary navigator from JPL.
Absolutely. And I remember my dad taking business trips out here to JPL and also, to Florida, to the Cape. So depending on what was going on. So I grew up with that, but I also grew up with my mom, whose first language was Spanish, and grew up with what it was like to have an immigrant parent. Grew up with kids, wondering why my mom spoke different than other people, questioning my Americanism because of who my mom was. But, that's tough. There's exclusion because of that. But my dad just kept telling me, just put one foot in front of the other, carry with you what you have, and just keep moving on. So that describes that. Texas made me strong.
Mm. Yeah. So what are some of the things from your childhood that has shaped or guided you into this career path?
Well, a couple of things in my childhood. My mother's family was incredibly poor, as was my dad's, but it was more relevant. It was more of, in my view, when I'd go to Argentina and I would see how people lived in certain parts of the country. And it really bothered me that it wasn't right. And so I always wanted to make things right. Or in school, if I saw someone being excluded or bullied, as I had experienced before, I always wondered if there was a way to make it right. As a child, I didn't have that power or authority, but I knew that as an adult, I'd want to make it right. Another thing that shaped my life, my cousin, who was 6 years old, was killed in a car accident. And that's something that nobody could make right. But that's something that had a deep impact. A loss of a child like that shapes you, someone especially when you're a young person. So when I see people in deep stress, sorrow, pain, I always try to do what I can to make their burden less, to lift their burden somehow. And I when I look back on my life and think about why I'm the way I am, things like that in my childhood has shaped me to be that way.
Yeah, a common theme that I've seen in people is when they have a sense of justice, it often is developed by a real injustice that they've observed either personally or witnessed, as a child.
Absolutely. Because there's no substitute for experiencing it firsthand like that.
Sure. Wow. So did you say you experienced some bullying because of your ethnicity in Texas?
Because of my ethnicity and my skin color. I'm a darker person. I just live inside all the time under these fluorescent lights, so I've faded. But I am a woman of color, but especially when I was younger, I was very, very dark, and people would make disparaging comments, ones I don't want to necessarily repeat word for word here because they are hurtful, and I would feel excluded, especially in the South, growing up there. And, questioning if I was really an American. I had one kid tell me, well, too bad you'll never be able to be president. And I said, why? And they go, because you weren't born in this country, even though I was.
Wow.
So I will not pretend that I've experienced the same level of prejudice that other people in this country have, but I know the sting of it. And to me, it makes me aware of it, to try to right the wrong, to try to give relief to someone who's experienced it much worse than I ever had.
I'm always very interested in those drivers, right? Like what motivates someone to pursue certain things in their life? Because you can see when it's absent and you can see when it's there. And I'm always interested to know when you see that it's there, right? Because those can be very powerful motivators, right?
Yes.
So that's sort of your childhood there in Texas. And what happens next in your life?
Well, I go to college at Texas Tech University in West Texas, in Lubbock, Texas. Texas is a big state. Lubbock is 500 miles away from Houston. I was that far away from home. It's the first time I'd really been far away from home.
500 miles and still the same
state.
I'm thinking, okay, Vegas is
probably even the same corner of
I know.
Same kind of central
the drive would never end.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's so flat out there, you can't even see the horizon. And so I was really homesick when I was first there. I cried every day. And I was only 17 when I went to college. I graduated a year earlier. So I was 17, kind of on my own. I lived in a dorm. But I'm glad my path in life led me there because West Texans are some of the friendliest, finest people I've ever met in my life. I have lifelong friendships from the West Texans I know. I got to, spend a couple weeks on a friend's ranch. I got to do unglamorous jobs like help vaccinate cattle and things like that, which I really enjoyed because I wanted to be a part of it. I felt like I was doing something, and I got to experience that life. So I went to undergrad there and got an accounting degree. And I decided that I really wasn't smart enough to do accounting, so I went to law school instead, where I could use my reasoning instead of math. And I went to law school also at Texas Tech. I had a couple summer jobs, clerkships, where I worked at the county jail back when they had law libraries. And remember when they had pocket parts and books?
Oh, yeah, right. So that was your job to
that was my
insert
job.
the pocket parts?
And I got to hang out with the people who were jailed. Actually, these were more like, these weren't violent offenders. These are what we call paper hangers, people who kite checks and things like that. More white collar. And so I worked in a jail. I got to get a view of another segment of society. A lot of people, they made a few left turns in their life that they shouldn't have made, and that's how they ended up there. So then I graduated from law school, and then I got my first job in Fort Worth, Texas. I was a legal aid attorney and a community organizer in 1989, fighting the fight. And it was tough being a woman in Texas litigating and trying cases back then, but I did it.
In the 80s?
Late 80s, early 90s, right.
What was tough about it?
Well, a couple things are tough about it. The judges in Texas, in the courts that I was in, I did family law primarily and some housing law, are all elected officials, partisan elected officials. There's a Republican or Democratic primary that they run in, and then there's a general election. So they're elected by the people every 4 years. So it's not the appointment system that they have here in the state of California. So if a judge was being inappropriate to you, there really wasn't a whole lot you could do about it because there wasn't anyone to fire him. So I'll give an example. I tried a case in an East Texas town, and the judge there, it was a long case. It was about a 2-week long divorce trial. And I was representing, this back in my legal aid days, I was representing a woman that had suffered violence at the hands of her husband. So everyone knew about it. It's a small town. Everyone knew the people. And I would come in early, and the judge got in this habit of saying, you know what, Jean, I love how you make coffee. Can you make me some coffee? Because you do such a good job at it. Wow. And I was the only female there. Even his clerk at the time was a man. And I noticed, so you say, well, what do you do? Am I going to complain about it? Am I going to make a complaint to the governor of Texas, that's technically his boss? So I made the coffee, and I noticed like a couple days in, the other attorneys that were on the case, even opposing attorneys who were male, they felt bad about it, and they would come to my rescue, literally. I have faith in humanity, and they say, let us help you do that. Let's all do this. We're all making the coffee together, because even the other men in that courtroom, even my adversaries who represented this battering husband, knew it was wrong. So that's one example of what I had to deal with. Another case, I had a jury trial in Cleburne, Texas, another small town in Johnson County, and it was my first jury trial. Whew, I was really, really nervous. Again, it was a custody case, and it was the first case that actually involved the issue of AIDS and HIV. My client had a child. She was already divorced. Her significant other who lived with her was HIV positive and had AIDS, and this is when the disease was new and people were being unreasonable and excluding people who were infected. And the reason her partner had AIDS is he was a hemophiliac and had gotten some blood, for the anticoagulant. Anyway, when I had this case, the judge would tell me things like, you know what, I think you do a lot better job in your juries if you wore a skirt instead of pants. He would make comments like during breaks, he would say, are you just trying to show up those other attorneys? That was pretty harsh, how you examined that witness, expecting me to back down, to pull back because I was female, because I wasn't being feminine enough in the defense of my client. And at the end of the day, I won, and my lady got her child, and I know that if I had that judge decide my case, I would have lost. So my daughter, I have 3 kids, and my daughter, who is in her early 20s, is shocked by this. She's like, how could you put up with it? How could you deal with it? And I'm like, well, I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it, but I had to do what I had to do for my client, for me, for my career, because I could not get a judge fired. Back then, no one cared about me too. So I just think about what my dad taught me. Is like, if you run into a brick wall like that, you just keep moving. And so that we call the baggage of my life. I take that with me now. I take that with me to every case that I have, because even though I had to run the gauntlet in that case, I still won, so that's how I got through.
These stories, these are not like, 100 years ago.
No.
50 years ago.
Not that long ago.
Yeah. And it's important to have these stories to come out and share with people, because they're real experiences that women have and still do experience often in the workplace.
Right.
Our previous guest, Ada, was describing her journey and how just because she was a woman, how she was treated, how people thought that she couldn't do a particular job. Your story is a little bit different in that you're treated horribly.
Yes.
So how did that shape you going forward in your career as an attorney?
Well, going forward, you got to keep slaying the dragon, as we say, but also it made me appreciate the efforts of women who were able to make change. It also makes me more sensitive when I see how other people are treated in a workplace or work situation. I will give many people the benefit of the doubt that sometimes they don't know if they're being inappropriate to a worker, coworker, colleague, whatever, just because of generation or attitudes. But I don't know. I guess what it brings to me now is I just don't give up. I never let go. That can be a downside sometimes. I'll admit, I don't let go. I do not. I wouldn't be a lawyer. I wouldn't be litigating cases. At first I was terrified to go to court. I do it now all the time. I never give up. And I think that's how it shaped me. Like, I will do whatever I can, within the bounds of what I think is right to go forward for a client, because I've already had to deal with it on such a more difficult level. At least now I don't have people tell me what to wear, ask me to make coffee, so I can do anything, now.
You sit there and you smile about these stories, but there's I think people would understand if you had taken a real different turn after that, maybe become very embittered and hardened from that.
I could have gone that way. It could have been real easy, and I know people that have taken a bitter approach to it. But another lesson I've learned from my dad is being angry is a waste of time, all right? And I don't have time in my life to be angry. I have a lot to celebrate in my life. I have a great husband, Jerry. Have no idea why he married me, but he did. We've been married almost 28 years. And so, yeah, I do smile about it because on balance, I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. I have so much to be thankful for. Yeah, I was abused as a young lawyer, but I just put one foot in front of the order. I'm proud that I was able to overcome it. I'm proud that I have a good life, with people that do appreciate what I can bring. And I think it's fair if other people feel better. I think it's fair if other people react differently and carry it with them. But you're wasting so much of your life's time if you keep looking back. You have to keep looking forward.
Attitude is just so important.
Yes.
As far as, do you progress as a person, or does society progress? And, just attitudes are just the key. What is it like in California versus Texas? What's been your experience?
With everywhere you go, it's good and bad. From the legal perspective, there's things I like and there's things I don't. I will say this: when I left Texas around, I think it was 2016, there was still a lot of sexism. I still had to be nice and smile to judges that would say sexist stuff to me. I have never had an incident of that here in California. Not to say that it hasn't happened, not to say that it doesn't, but I have not. So I appreciate that. I like how the judges here do their research before they listen to your cases. And, so that's the legal part of things I like. The difference in Texas is, I'm going to get kind of in the lawyer world here. there's not so many procedural things to deal with. There's not so much meeting and conferring on discovery. That's usually like one phone call, like, are you going to give me my stuff or not? That's it. Here in Texas, here in California, we have to write an essay to the other lawyer with case law explaining, can you please give me this information I asked? Lots of talking. In Texas, it's like, you give it to me or you don't, and you get to go to court. So, and I think it's because the court systems here are so big that they really want lawyers to try and work things out. From the communities that are here, I do miss my friends in Texas, but I really embrace my life in California. I've made some great friends. I noticed that people in California, especially a lot of the liberal people here, are a little wary of meeting a Texan at first glance, but I've gained trust, because they get to know me and who I am. I love the outdoor life that I have here. I like, being able to go hiking without mosquitoes, hail, tornadoes, hurricanes, blackouts because there's no power grid. I find that
you
good.
missed the blackouts that we had. We back in the early 2000s, we had the same problem Texas had.
I'm glad I missed those.
Yeah, and earthquakes. You haven't been here for an earthquake.
I've been here for one. Didn't topple any structures, but it was pretty scary because it lasted like a good 15 seconds. And those of you not from California, 15 seconds is a long time for an earthquake. Where it starts. But that's true. I haven't been here for a big one. Yeah,
we've gone a long spell. I don't think we've had a major one since the early 90s.
There was 7, maybe. Remember when it was really hot 2 years ago?
Uh-huh.
I think there was a 7 somewhere. It was like maybe out in the desert. Yeah, but we felt it here.
Right.
But
I'm not looking forward to that. I'm so worried. And listen, whenever there's a tiny earthquake, I freak out. And my neighbor's like, what earthquake? Well, I don't know. They're Californians. They're used to it.
I just want to ask, are you able to turn up or turn down your Texas accent? Because I feel like it's changing.
It does. And when I'm with my Texas folk, I have a really strong accent. I notice that there's a few keywords. Insurance.
I can hear that.
Here in California, they say insurance. I say insurance, umbrella.
Oh, okay. There, I can hear it.
It has to do with a lot of stress. And I say y'all, but let me defend the word y'all. It is a useful word in the English language.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need a you plural.
Yeah.
Don't we? In other languages and everything. I know Spanish, which I speak some Spanish, it has a you plural, but I do have an accent. I think it's just kind of, since I'm a city girl, my mom is from Argentina, maybe it's leveled out a little bit, but it used to be more than it is. I notice my kids still have some of it too, and some of the word choices we use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great insight into some of what made you who you are and why you fight for the things that you do. Right. We ask each guest to bring an item of significance, sort of to share a little bit more about who they are. And what did you bring with you?
Well, I brought my father's Stetson, which is a cowboy hat. I'll put it on here briefly. It doesn't go over the headphones. And so we had a few of these. My dad was a native Texan. My dad was also the mayor of Tiki Island, which is an island off Galveston, Texas.
Oh, okay.
And I also grew up in a hunting culture. I don't hunt, but my brother and my dad would field dress deer in our driveway, things like that, and grew up in a house with guns. And so they wear hats out when you're in the sun. But the Stetson, belongs to my late father. To me, exemplifies who I am. The Stetson is the brand of cowboy hat for cowboys to have, and to me, it's a symbol of my heritage and my strength. And this Stetson is probably about 45 years old.
Wow, it's in great condition. I was just looking at how clean and
they hold up.
Just like it looks perfect.
Right, and but they hold up. You used to take care of them. We have a few of these in the house. I gave one to each of my kids, but this one's mine.
Wow. Yeah. So he had a number of Stetsons then.
Yes.
And when would he wear it?
When we go outside, when we go to Home Depot.
So it would just be a regular piece of clothing for him. Yes,
and cowboy boots too. Yeah. So that's just what he wore. Yeah. So that's what I grew up with.
Awesome. Yeah. There's a great history with this company.
Yes.
Hat making company. And I don't know all of it offhand, but I know they have been around for a long time and these are really quality products. I have a story from, Germany when I was in the Army. Friday night, 21-year-olds getting ready to go out. And my friends from Texas would all get dressed up and they would wear, white button-down shirt, blue jeans. It had like the skull, stain in their back pocket. And they all had these huge hats and belt buckles.
Oh,
and the belt buckles were they actually won events.
Yeah, they're trophies.
Yeah.
They're bull
really?
riding trophies,
Oh, yeah?
things like that. Yeah.
So that was my first exposure to that style of dress and their culture. So,
Right.
yeah.
And you said Wrangler, no
Wranglers.
Levi's.
Not Levi's. Interestingly enough, it's Wranglers. And if you'll notice, I'll bring another text thing. My favorite singing artist is George Strait, and he has his own brand of Wranglers that they sell at Walmart. He's also a rodeoer. He's older than me. So anyway, it's a longer story. But anyway, so believe it or not, in Texas, the jean to wear are Wranglers. Okay. Yeah.
I think that's Brett Favre. Yeah, he's the guy.
Right.
So, what are some of the other stories that you have from your journey, either as a Texas transplant, or an attorney?
Well, as a transplant here, we Texans, I'm a can-do person, and I'm a data-driven person. I'm a results-driven person. I think that's why Scott and I get along. Got some concrete goals, and we take our steps to get them. And that was just kind of the dynamic I had in Texas. I come here to California, and everything is more theoretical. So, for example, when I was looking for a house, oh my gosh, houses are so hard to find here, and they're so expensive. I had a realtor, and she's awesome. And I was getting frustrated because every house I looked at would be sold like the second I looked at it. And I was complaining to her. I'm like, Deirdre, I go, why is it so hard to get a house around here? I mean, like, here's what I want to spend. Can't you give me a list and I will buy one? This is what I thought you could do, right? And she's like, Jean, and here's the California moment. Don't worry. The right house will present itself to you. This
Sounds
was
goofy, doesn't it?
I'm like, what?
Was she eating alfalfa sprouts and
Avocados? Yes. So that's one of my what? I guess I'm in California moments, really? This seems like a transactional thing here, but it's not. And just so the audience knows, the Right House did present itself to me, ultimately.
Well,
yes.
Good. And you embraced it and accepted it. And
I embraced it. Well, another thing I had to do is there was other people wanting to buy this house, so I had to write a letter to the owners.
A little story about
Yes.
why
they should
it's
pick
good
us.
for you, and
Yes.
or you would be good for it. Yeah.
Correct. That would never happen in Texas.
No?
Are you kidding me?
Wow. Okay.
No. Never.
Yeah.
So you shared a little bit about your history with, I would say, being discriminated against
Yes.
as a woman. And do you get to fight against these issues now as a lawyer?
Yes, I do, because Ting knows all about this. We've been doing a lot of work. We represent employees, majority employees in employment law cases. So that includes discrimination based on gender, sexual orientation, race, national origin, disability, all sorts of, all categories that are discriminatory. So yes, and we also represent clients who aren't paid properly, who don't get rest breaks, who work in factories until they, just drop and faint from exhaustion. Marginalized communities who are treated unfairly in the workplace is a big part of what we do. So bringing my knowledge, I guess my background of what it's like to feel maligned, I can see things from my client's point of view to an extent. I'm not going to pretend that my experience is as severe as theirs, but it makes me empathetic to what they're experiencing. And also Ting and I both had restaurant jobs. We both know what it's like to have a boss ask you to work extra and open and close and not pay you, to not be given a break, to not be given time to eat, things like that. So we bring to our jobs our background too. And so I think my background helps me understand their point of view and makes me want to fight for them.
I would imagine that a lot of those people who are being taken advantage of actually may not even know, right? So what do you find is the challenge of actually informing them that they have these rights and they've been violated?
That's a huge challenge. And the majority of our clients really did not know that they had those rights. In fact, some people in our office, that I've talked to, that back when they had restaurant jobs, they didn't realize they had these types of rights. So, our challenge, like all challenges, is trying to get this information out to our communities. And we've been doing that through, in the pandemic, we can't do it in person right now, but soon. But the way we're doing it is through social media, through Facebook videos, through Instagram, through podcasts, through, is it Chinese LA?
Chinese in LA.
Chinese in LA is a big
website.
Websites, things like that. And another thing that we do is when we talk to clients that come in for a variety of problems, like if someone comes in for a workers' compensation issue, we'll go ahead and ask them about their employment circumstance and find out if they are being treated fairly. So that's how we get the message out. And, we also give seminars. I gave a seminar with some other attorneys for the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce. We did a Zoom one because of the pandemic where we described employee rights. And I'm hoping that once the pandemic is lifted, then we can do more outreach. Back when I was a community organizer and a legal aid attorney, I did in-person outreach. I'd go to housing projects, I'd go to women's shelters, to where affected communities would be and explain to them their rights.
So your real passion is the disenfranchised,
Yes.
those that are not getting what they're entitled to.
Exactly. I get a personal, I don't want to use the word joy, but I get personal gratitude. And I hate to use this word, but it's a California word, when I empower people. Power is a good word because of my name, but I do feel good in my heart. I feel just positive and great when I can empower somebody else that had no idea that they were being denied a right and get that right for them. That's what makes my day. That's what I live for professionally.
Yeah, I can see that in your face right now.
Yeah, I do.
And that's a powerful thing to be able to do for people.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's like, and then when you tell someone like that, they can tell other people. They're empowered to tell their community, So it benefits so many people to do that.
You mentioned the restaurant industry as one being that frequently people are taking advantage of. What are some other industries that you see that happening a lot?
The warehousing and packing industry, like places where, people don't get a break and they do the same repetitive motion over and over and over again, packing apples into those plastic bags that you see, at different grocery stores, or if you buy like figs and they're like in one of those shrink wrapped things. People that work in those jobs that I have talked to, they get no breaks. And, just so you know, the California Labor Code says that you should get a 10-minute break after every 4 hours of work, paid. Don't get breaks. And you're also supposed to get a 30-minute meal break, unpaid. And they don't even get meal breaks. So many of them don't. And what's happening is when you work people like that, our bodies can only take so much. They get injured. They get injured so much that they can't work anymore and they can't support their families. It's not just a question they don't need lunch. No, you are affecting an entire family, communities, when you treat employees like this. And it's something that's, once you get involved in the court process, it's easily rectified, because once an employer knows that someone's watching and is making sure that their employees get breaks, they'll start changing their behavior.
Wow. I have a lot more questions to go into, because that's very informative, right? Because many people don't know these things.
Right.
And maybe even someone can just take advantage of a person who says, oh, I just want to be a go-getter. I just want to be recognized for working hard. But they're like, okay, you can work 6 hours straight if you want. But it sounds like that's not even really a thing that they can decide, right? That's just against the law.
I'm going to give you a lawyer answer. Generally, yes. There's some cases where someone doesn't work a full 8 hours and it would make sense for them not to take a break after hour 4 if they're only there for 5 hours, and there's, agreements they can reach with the employer. But for the most part, especially someone from an immigrant community who feels insecure in their job, if a boss says, I need you to work from 8 to 8 for 12 hours, they're going to say yes, because they're afraid that if they say no, they're not going to have a job, which would be devastating for their family. So I think a lot of the immigrant community is part of that, a vulnerable community that is preyed upon by employers.
Right. I want to get into a little bit of how you build that trust with them, because I imagine that's a process. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Warmuth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
All right, we're back with Gene Power. Before the break, I was mentioning that I thought there could be some difficulty in getting people to trust you, to align with them and say, look, I'm on your side. I'm fighting for your rights, especially if they're coming from an immigrant population. How do you see that, or is that even a problem?
Well, maybe I don't have that problem with my clients, but I think here is why. When I talk to clients, I talk to them as an equal, and I talk to them not from a place of judgment, because not all clients are perfect clients. Some people have done some things that probably shouldn't have happened in the workplace, but I always give assurances. I'm not really here to judge. I'm here to evaluate and try and get the best result for them. And I think the reason I'm able to connect with clients is because I've been there, not on the same level. I know what it's like. And I think most people just want to be heard. They want to be able to say what they want to say. As lawyers, it's really hard to have clients get to the point of their problem. So I go out of the way to give them 10 minutes just to tell me everything that they want to tell me. And so I work really, really hard to gain trust, to listen to their problems, and really get to know them as a human. I've never had problems with clients trusting me with that approach.
Right. Yeah, I'm just fascinated with all the ways that people are just uninformed of what the employer's responsibilities are and what their rights are. It's not like people are hiring them and saying, look, make sure that I do this and this and this, right? It's just never like that. It's really unfortunate. But you mentioned warehouse workers,
Yes.
Restaurant workers, and what other populations are you serving in this capacity?
Meatpacking workers, and especially in the context of COVID, a lot of people in this country have seen what the conditions are like for people that work in the poultry and meatpacking industries. Not only are they not provided protection from COVID, but they're not given breaks a lot of the times. They're not given meal breaks, and they're also subjected to unsanitary and dangerous conditions. And so those are the main work areas that I see. But it's interesting you should mention that we talk to people that have office jobs that, you don't really, get your hands all calloused, where people are not treated properly in the employment workspace. They tend to be lower wage earners, but, they might be in charge of some clerical type duties, but no breaks, no time. And, the reason that we have breaks in our law is because, medical professionals recognize that you can't keep working nonstop. You're not going to be able to do it. And so to me, it's more than just an employment right, it's a human right to be able to have a break.
Right.
You're talking about wage and hour claims. What are some of the other types of claims that come within the employment law category?
Well, big claim, so there's wage and hour, as Scott mentioned, but we also have the areas of discrimination and workplace harassment and wrongful termination. So one example could be is if you are a woman and you are paid less than your male coworkers, or you are being ostracized because you are a woman and aren't given opportunities for certain promotions that men get. That's basically what we call a disparate impact discrimination. We also have harassment, sexual harassment, commenting on a woman's appearance. People still telling people to wear skirts to work because you've got good legs. Being, ridiculed and questioned. Why do you have to go to the bathroom all the time? We've had cases like that. Or just really severe ones. We have a case going on where a client was physically harassed on a repeated basis, groped and mauled by her manager at a restaurant. with impunity, and management wouldn't do anything about it because he was such a great manager, according to them. And so that's straight up discrimination, sexual harassment. So that's one area of harassment. Another one we see a lot is you can't discriminate against somebody because of a disability. And what'll happen is, let's say someone gets injured at work and they need to be put on some type of modified duty, maybe something where you don't lift things that are as heavy, or you don't have to stand as long, especially in a bigger company where there's other jobs. If you get, again, all facts are different, but if your employer refuses to even engage in what's called an interactive process, a conversation with you to try and figure out options to modify your work, that's a violation. That's a discriminatory act. Or if you get fired just because of your disability, depending on the circumstances, that is also an area of discrimination that we pursue. So, the two main areas in the labor world, the employment law world, are wage and hour and discrimination and harassment.
You seem very knowledgeable, obviously, about what you're doing. I guess you wouldn't be here if you weren't, but thank you for sharing.
Always learning.
Thank you for sharing that. And you're very passionate about yes. what you're doing and fighting for these people. Something that I'm very passionate about is food specifically, yes. but different experiences. And, there's some places in Texas, like I really want to go to. I forget this guy's name. His barbecue place is by name, but anyway, that's something else. But
I do miss Texas barbecue. I'll put that in there. It's really, I'm a brisket person, not a tri-tip person. Sorry, California.
I don't like tri-tip, but so you've been here now. You can call yourself a San Gabriel or SGV resident. So we're going to go into some of your favorite places in the San Gabriel Valley.
All right.
So we have the SGV3, where we like to have a guest tell us their 3 favorite events or places or locations or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley. So what are some things that stick out for you?
Okay, it's going to be primarily food related.
And it usually is.
Awesome.
Okay, number 1 place, Oh My Pond, which is the bakery that is on the bottom floor of our office building.
In San Gabriel.
In San Gabriel.
Right at San Gabriel and Valley Boulevard.
Valley Boulevard, right there. They have the best cakes. I'm just going down the list of everything I've had there. They have the best cakes, sandwiches, coffee, boba, teas, everything. And I get all my kids' birthday cakes and stuff from there because they're so creative. So I really do like them.
Is that a Chinese bakery?
I think it's Taiwan. I think
so. Have you seen that in Texas, or is that a sort of a California, specialty?
That is a California thing. Now, there's in Houston, where I'm from, is a large Vietnamese population, and Vietnamese restaurants. But I've never been to an Asian bakery until I've moved to California. So that is new for me and just an absolute delight.
Yeah,
just great.
I think what's very different is that everything is individually wrapped.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yes. It's like everything is like a gift wrapped. Everything is a present. Please, you need to go there. It's just a delight. Like every now and then I'll bring some home and, it's just woo. And just the attention to detail. It's amazing. I can't believe I'm so lucky to work upstairs from the bakery and across the street from Popeyes. So.
And those Popeye sandwiches are great.
They are great. We do have Popeyes in Texas. My other favorite place, and actually it's more of a person, is Sandy Roscoe, who's in charge of our San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce.
Well, Sandy was a guest on our show.
I do know that. In fact, Scott, before I interviewed for my job interview with you, I listened to a couple of your podcasts, and I remember hers specifically.
Oh,
I did.
Yeah.
And then later we met because I did an online Zoom seminar with some other lawyers, and she made me feel so at home. She's in charge of the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce, and she immediately took me in. I felt a part of the chamber, and she's really good about motivating other people to help everyone in San Gabriel.
Oh, Sandy is great. She only cares about one thing, and that's helping other people.
That's right.
That's her life, and she is a wonderful person. Yes, and I'm glad you've been able to follow up and make her a good,
know,
friend.
She is. She's a friend. However, we do have one dispute. I'll go ahead and bring it up. It's ugly, but it's a Dodgers-Astros problem.
Oh, yeah, right. She is a big Dodgers fan, right?
Oh, no.
And I'm a Houstonian.
Oh,
There's
and-
been rumors about cheating. I'm not
That's
saying,
right.
I'm not going to confirm or deny them, but I will say I do love the Dodgers, but I'm not going to lie. During the World Series at the Astros, I had to support my Houston, all right?
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. But I mean, there is only one Major League Baseball team, and that's the New York Yankees. So, you know, I'm sorry. You can fight about Dodgers and Astros, but like to me, that's not even.
Yeah, you're like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's the New York Yankees.
Right. Listen, the Yankees, when people think baseball, they do think Yankees. They do. I'll admit it. And then my third place is Twinkle Tea. I've really gotten into the boba scene here. Where is Twinkle Tea at? It's on Valley. I mean, it's not far from the office. My world is in San Gabriel proper, which is a great world to be. I love it.
Right.
And so Twinkle Tea, not Tinkle Tea, Twinkle Tea is a, sorry about that, Twinkle Tea.
Eventually, it's a tinkle tea.
Eventually
but
it is. It's a boba and tea place. And I had never had boba till I moved to California. I knew it existed. It just seemed novel to me when I was in Texas. And here it's like, this is what everyone does. So I got on board.
And it is sold around the country, but I know my kids who live in New York and in Wisconsin, but they always, when they come back, it's always In-N-Out and boba
Yes.
here.
The boba's the best here.
Yeah.
The sushi's good in this state also.
Yeah.
I've always liked sushi, but yeah, the boba for sure. In-N-Out burger. Yeah.
So you named Popeyes and In-N-Out Burger and sushi also. So
I'm going to go eat.
I know,
So you
I'm
guys
hungry
can
now.
finish the podcast.
well, Jean, thank you so much for sharing some of your journey and sharing with the listeners, you know, what made you who you are and why you do the things that you do in the way that you do. What are some things that are coming up in your career, and what are you looking forward to next?
Well, I'm looking forward to, in my career, helping more clients, getting to know more people here in the San Gabriel Valley, taking more challenging cases. We're really working to expand our reach and do more what's called class action and PAGA cases. A PAGA case is a private attorney general's action, where if a certain employer is denying certain rights to employees, like if hundreds of employees aren't getting rest breaks, we're looking to build up our practice to be able to pursue that on a more global basis, on a class action basis. So I'm looking forward to pursuing those types of cases. I'm also looking forward to expanding our reach through social media with Ting at my side, and I really enjoy working with Ting. I should talk some more about her. Ting worked here before I did. She was hired on a few months before me, and she was already ready, already set up, had templates ready, and like the Sunday before I started working, I got, this meant a lot to me, a LinkedIn request, and I clicked on it, and it was Ting already sending me that LinkedIn request the day before my job, and I clicked accept, and I knew that then this is going to be the right place for me. So she's a brilliant, smart, speaks many languages, and couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, you're very, very lucky to be able to work together,
Yes.
the two of you. And you love talking about what you do, and you love helping the people that need your help.
Yes.
How do they contact you? Do you want them to go through Ting or directly contact you? What's the best?
Whatever is easiest. Just call the main switchboard, ask for me, ask for Ting. If you speak Mandarin, you can contact Ting directly. She's a fluent Mandarin speaker. Also, we have Viviana Salazar, who speaks to our Spanish language clients. So you can call the main number.
626-282-6868.
That's right.
Call the main number. Ask for Jean. I will take every call. I've never not taken a call. And if we're having a communication difficulty because of language, I'm going to get you to the right person. And so, I mean, I take every call that I get. Another thing I was taught by my dad, and being a Texas lawyer, I return all calls, all correspondence, everything in 24 hours, always.
Wow. That's
that
impressive.
is really important. And the fact that she does that, demonstrates the kind of person she is and the kind of attorney she is.
Sure.
So I would definitely, encourage anybody to call you directly. I'm going to give the phone number again because it means a lot, 626-282-6868. And again, language is not a problem because you've got the Spanish assistant and you've got the Chinese Mandarin speaking assistant.
Absolutely. And also, let me give out my email address. You can always email me. I look at my email all the time. I know that's not necessarily a healthy practice, but I do look at my email all the time. It's jpower@law888.com. Power singular. I'm the singular power. So jpower@law888.com.
Oh, wonderful. One thing I'm looking forward to is when you bring portals again next to the San Gabriel office. Because I've never seen it there.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, well,
I'm just joking, actually.
I'll text you before. And another thing, and Scott knows this, I also am a cook. As a good Southern woman, I think this is why my husband married me, is I cook all the time. And I like to bake during the holidays and bring food to people.
Brought in some great baked goods this past Christmas.
Wonderful.
Southern lady raised right.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a guest and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, both of you, for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.